is saying now. I mean, some of the non-governmental organizations were saying this over and over again, that the IEC already had a dry run, that there was no need, there are systems in place. But if there is a bungling of the local government elections because of lack of resources or not meeting of timelines, because we know that it is a process, holding an election. There's a lot of logistics that have to be put in place. How will that impact on people's universal suffrage?
No, I think when it comes to processes, you're right. They are there, the timeline is there, the timetable is there with all the deadlines. And some parties clearly, amended their systems and made the adjustment to have everything in place in time. Those who have not made these concessions will have issues. Now, if there is a bungling, as you say, I suspect the question will be any crises or bungling that happens, is it because of the political parties who didn't do what they were supposed to, or is it the IEC systems that is the problem? If that is the case, then of course the Electoral Court will be approached by whoever party feels like they have been let down by the IEC with either processes or decisions. So we will see how that goes. The point is the election will go ahead, and all parties involved, organizations involved, must prepare best they can to be able to give people of South Africa the time, to vote, to register. All campaigns must, I think, for the short term now be on registration, and then make sure that, the elections can take place, that people have a place to go and vote.
All right, thank you. Do stay with us, Dr. Ina Khuz, political analyst. Let's go to another political party now. IFP spokesperson Khuzwayo joins us now. A very good evening to Mr. Hlengwa. Thank you so much for speaking to us. What is the IFP's reaction to this?
Well, the IFP has always abided itself by court decisions, and this is no different. We had complied precisely with the IEC timelines because we understood that the court had the option to rule otherwise, and that has happened. And therefore want to confirm that the IFP is ready for the election and will be rolling out a campaign consistent with the COVID regulations that are in place. And we are calling on our structures now to hit the ground running and to go into these elections full force.
How much will that restrict you, the fact that we are under restrictions, alert level 3, certainly more stringent than alert level 2, which had a lot more freedom of movement? And we know campaigning is going to be one of those things that fall by the wayside. How is this going to impact you in terms of being able to mobilize?
Well, we're going to have to be agile, and we're going to have to apply the necessary flexibility to our campaign, and of course maximum responsibility so that we do not put at risk the collective livelihood of South African citizens that we will be campaigning. And therefore the Daily Management Committee of the IFP, which is responsible for elections, will be issuing guidelines on Monday to our structures, which will be consistent with the current levels that we are on, and we will continue adjusting our campaign model and campaign plan consistent with whatever determinations will be made insofar as the campaign, the restriction levels are. But we are really just calling on our structures to be very responsible, but at the same time to make sure that we now have a fully functional and effective campaign and to hit the ground running.
All right, thank you so much for speaking to us. Khuzwayo of IFP. We speak now to Khanif Hendricks of Al-Jamaat Party. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much, Mr. Hendricks. It seems like we're still on hold. We'll see if we can get him back on the line. Mr. Hendricks?
Hi, thank you very much. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. So you've heard the news, a ConCourt's ruling on elections going ahead. Firstly, your reaction and what machinery you have in place to get your party going ready for elections?
Look, we were ready with all our candidate nominations a day before the time because we expected the IEC system to crash the final day because we knew that certain political parties with substantial candidates will clog the system. So we all ready to go. We've already had 3 campaign meetings this week and over the weekend. And so we are ready to contest the elections on the 27th, all our plans in place. We knew that the Constitutional Court will take into account Deputy Chief Justice Musaneki said that the COVID will be at its lowest peak in October and possibly at its highest in February. So we used our common sense and we realized that the Constitutional Court judges will rule that the elections will take place on the 27th. All our candidates are geared up, hyped up. They've been campaigning. And as you know, we largely have to depend on other forms of messaging. We cannot go door to door, and that's a problem. But we have a campaign based on online messaging.
Thank you so much for speaking to us, Khanif Hendricks of Al Jamaa Party. Let's get more reaction now. We speak to COPE's Dennis Bloem. Very good evening to you, Mr. Bloem. Thank you so much for speaking to us. What has been the reaction to the news from your party? And I'm not sure if you can hear me, Mr. Bloem, or if that's another line dropping. But what's your reaction to these developments, and what plans do you have in place to maximize what little time is left in order to be able to woo voters to COPE?
So we welcome this judgment or ruling by the Constitutional Court that the local government elections must proceed on the 27th of October. We are ready to contest these elections. All our candidates are registered. We have paid our deposit, and I am very much sure that people are happy on the ground, because they want to see change in the municipalities. Almost all municipalities have collapsed. That's what we have said all the time. But we welcome this election, and we are calling upon all political parties and independents to respect this ruling. We have always said we are a law-abiding a party that respects the Constitution and the judiciary of this country.
Mr. Bloem, when you say you call on all political parties to respect this ruling, do you have fears that some might not, that is, respect it? And in what manner would they go about doing that?
No, you see, that's the episode. That's now a new trend in South Africa, that even to challenge the ruling of the Constitutional Court. That's why we are saying all political parties must respect this ruling of the Constitutional Court. It's very important that we must go to a local government election episode. People are crying every day for services. Let us have this local government elections and change incompetent councillors, corrupt councils, so that people must have the freedom and people must enjoy a better life for all. We are saying, let us go to these elections on the 27th of October.
All right, thank you so much for speaking to us, COPE's Dennis Bloem. We speak to ATM Party now. A very good evening to you, Mr. Spusiso Ngubani. Tell us where ATM, I know you are those who are watching this very, very closely, and you had vested interests in this, so no doubt a good reaction from your party.
Well, thank you very much, my sister. We are very much excited as the party. Remember, we were the party in arguing for the elections to go ahead in defense of the constitution of our country. We didn't believe that there is a situation that can force the ConCourt to amend the constitution to exercise the rights that they do not have as the ConCourt. So as it stands now, yes, we are so happy as the party to celebrate part We are saying, let's all of us now find a way to do the best of what we can within the parameters of the COVID-19 situation. And again, we appeal to the IEC that the timetable obviously must be changed now to accommodate the current situation in order to have the free and fair elections within the situation, like all other countries, by the way, in Zambia, in America, and other countries. Let us quickly find a way, both the IEC and us as political parties, to make the situation best out of the situation of the pandemic that we're facing.
It's very interesting that you say you're appealing to the IEC to accommodate the situation. How were you envisaging that they do this, given that the time frame, as you mentioned, is very short, and they have their own time frame for which they need to follow in preparing for elections? What would you like to see happen?
Well, the first thing is to revisit the timetable. Remember, the old timetable is expired now. We have a court judgment. It means we can no longer use the timetable that was there, that was agreed upon. The first assignment, according to us as an ITM of the IEC, is to sit down and revisit the timetable of what should happen, when and how, within what the court has given us. But as well, to us as political parties, it means let's sit down now and quickly look at the ways how best can we launch our manifestos within the parameters of the pandemic, how best can we save our communities, but also preaching our gospel of the manifesto as parties. It's a challenge, both of us, political parties as well as the IEC. We must be innovative. There's nothing we can do now. We are faced with a situation where we must save life, but the governance of the country must go ahead. You can no longer accommodate corruption that is happening in our local municipalities. We have to kick out those who have misled our people, who have failed to deliver, but as well be within the situation. But we will quickly learn from what other countries have done successfully.
All right, thank you so much for speaking to us, COPE's, rather ATM's Sbusiso Mngabane. Thank you so much for speaking to us. The ATM, as you know, had also made a submission to the court saying that South Africans are desperate for change, particularly at local government level where corruption is rampant, service delivery is poor, regular elections a vehicle for that change, they said. So they are happy with that outcome. Dr. Ina Khos, back with us, political analyst. Thank you for your patience and sticking with us. So you've been hearing the reactions of some of those political parties, and I'd like to stick with that last part, what the ATM was saying, that because the old timetable has changed, that the IEC needs to accommodate this. Now, I remember speaking to the Deputy IEC Chief Electoral Officer, and one of the things that he was saying, and I even said to him, it sounds to me like a case was already being made that the IEC is unable to hold these elections, talking about timelines, and there not being sufficient time to meet some of these logistical issues. Should we foresee a problem? I know I asked this question, but in line with what ATM is saying, should we brace ourselves?
Yes, I think the short answer is yes. There will be issues. There are going to be problems, but these are not insurmountable, in my opinion. What you need now from the IEC is very clear leadership, very clear direction in what needs to happen, so that and it needs to be communicated very well to the political parties and to the rest of the country as well. And there needs to be cooperation now between the IEC and all the different political parties and other interested parties, so that we can. So that they all can work together to have a successful, free and fair election. But there will be hiccups, and we will now have to see sound leadership and a proper strategy put in place to make sure it happens, or that there are a few problems as possible, and that they get dealt with very quickly.
Let's get reaction now, Dr. Khuzwayo, from the EFF's Vuyani Pambo. Mr. Pambo, thank you so much for speaking to us. The EFF's reaction to what the ConCourt has ruled, given a previous position status on whether elections should be held at this time.
Well, thank you very much for having us. We note this judgment as lethargic and sluggish, but nonetheless, we will take it as it comes. As the EFF, we've proven that we are ready. We are going to contest in all the wards in the country. But we must warn the IEC that it must not be tempted to open candidate registration. It must continue with the program as a timetable as it is. The only thing that would make this IEC look more credible is for it to open voter registration, because that is the only thing that is going to make sure that there is a proper participation by the citizens of this country. So we need voter registration. We can't, but candidate registration must not be open. There's overwhelming evidence, or rather precedent, that suggests that if you remember with the case of NFP and IFP, where they missed, the deadline. Now, if they open for ANC specifically, because this is affecting the ANC in particular, if they open candidate registration, they would have told South Africa that IEC, and would have told them with overwhelming evidence that IEC is for ANC. So the IEC has got an opportunity now to save face. And the only way they can make these elections free and fair is not to open candidate registration. All political parties had the opportunity to make sure that they register their candidates. The EFF did that. We did that in a turnaround of 7 days. We did not sleep. We made sure that we are registered as an organization. So we must not be brought into the disorganization of the ANC. There's no longer an organization. It's a disorganized group of crooks who can't even pay for their own employees. So South Africa must not be taken that route of opening candidate registration. We must not allow, the IEC must not allow that to happen. If it does that, we will know for sure, with overwhelming evidence, that the IEC is for the ANC. So the Mama Bolo must know. He must start understanding that this is an opportunity for him, or for the IEC, to make sure that we open for voter registration, but not for candidate registration, because all of us, including the ANC, had the same opportunity. We use the same system that the IEC did. It froze for the ANC, but did not freeze for us. It's not possible. So now it's game on. We just finished our Central Command team meeting as the EFF. It was just a signal, or rather, it was just for us to just tie our boots. We are ready. Even if elections come yesterday, we are ready. The battle is on, and the people of South Africa must know the EFF is coming door to door. We're coming to them. We're going to campaign as normal. On the 26th of September, we're launching our manifesto, and we're going to launch it the normal way, the right way, the way our people know it. And we're going to take this election because we're the organization that our people have been waiting for. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Vuyani Pambo, EFF spokesperson. We speak now to the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. Spokesperson Lungim Jali joins us now. Very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us. So we know that the minister had already gazetted the election date. So I'd imagine that you are already ready for all systems to be in place.
Yes, good evening, and thank you for having me on the show. Yes, the minister gazetted the date of the election, and we did that in consultation, obviously, with the IEC. So if the IEC is ready, then we are ready to hold the election. So.
Let's talk about the registration date, voter registration date, according to the court's finding, saying that the minister must no later than the 10th of September 21 issue a proclamation in terms of Section 24, subsection 2. Do you foresee the minister meeting this deadline?
Well, in terms of the judgment itself, I think what we are doing now is we are studying the judgment, especially as it relates to the proclamation of the election date, to see how best we can comply with the ConCourt judgment. So we will be studying the judgment and we will make further comment in due course.
When you say how best you can comply with the ConCourt ruling, what would be the challenges?
Well, like I said, the running of the election, and what we do is we do it in conjunction or in coordination with the IEC. So we still need to consult with the IEC going forward, and then I'm sure we will do what is best in terms of the judgment.
Okay, so let's talk about the fact that this would be nothing new. You say you have to do this in conjunction with the IEC. When the IEC said it was approaching the Constitutional Court, it obviously had difficulties that it cited. So what challenges do you foresee in complying with the ConCourt ruling?
Look, obviously the IEC listed the challenges that it has with the holding of the elections on the 27th, and as we said, that of the ConCourt, and that is what we are still saying. But we still need to study the judgment in terms of what it requires from COGTA.
Well, thank you so much for speaking to us. That is the COGTA spokesperson, Lungi Mjali. Moving on now to Brett Herron of the Good Party. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us. So your reaction on this news by the ruling of the Constitutional Court, and I'm not sure if you were privy to some of what the COGTA spokesperson was saying, but pretty much saying they'll do the best that they can to comply with the ConCourt ruling.
Good evening, Tadusa. Yeah, let me start by saying we welcome the ConCourt ruling. I think it makes clear that the Constitution is supreme and that even the Constitutional Court is subject to that Constitution. So that clarifies that part that I think has been an area of uncertainty as to how the Constitutional Court would interpret its mandate and authority. I'm particularly pleased that there was an order that the promulgation be set aside and that the minister be ordered to re-promulgate the election, because the IEC cancelled a voter registration weekend for the 31st of July and the 1st of August, and then on the 3rd of August the minister promulgated the election, so closing the voters' roll. And I know tens of thousands of South Africans have registered subsequent to the promulgation using the electronic online system. So the fact that the Constitutional Court was alive to the fact that new voters and voters who have moved and hadn't yet changed their residence in terms of, or their municipality in terms of re-registering, that those voters would be disenfranchised by how this went down. So I think it's a good order, and it addresses some of the concerns we had about how quickly the voters' roll was closed.
All right, thank you so much for speaking to us, Brett Herron of the Good Party. So Dr. Ina Khuz, political analyst, has been with us listening into all of the reaction from the political parties. Dr. Khuz, I now want to go back to the issue that we had wanted to speak about earlier on, the fact that President Cyril Ramaphosa addressed Parliament today. He was responding to, among other issues, questions on the recent cabinet reshuffle early last month. Ramaphosa made sweeping changes in his cabinet after former Health Minister Dr. Zweli Mkhize resigned over the Digital Vibe scandal. Dr. Mkhize was replaced by his deputy, Joe Phaahla. So, Dr. Khuz, I want us to listen to what the President had to say about Zweli Mkhize's resignation, and I want to hear your reaction.
The question, an issue that has been raised around Minister Gwede Mantashe in relation to the issues of SASSA have been dealt with at the Commission. The State Capture Commission have been fully explained and fully articulated by none other than the Minister himself. And he explained the circumstances around the issues that the Honourable Member has raised. In relation to Deputy Minister Zizi Kodwa, the same thing happened. He did get occasion to go to the commission and answered the various questions that have to do with matters like that. So the various answers that they have given are such that they, in my view, were straightforward and gave full answers to the issues that may well have arisen even publicly. In relation to the issue he raised about Honorable Dr. Mkhize, Dr. Mkhize resigned from cabinet and accepted his resignation. And we have moved on. And I think the matter is best left where it is.
All right, so Dr. Khuz, I think for the people who have objected to what he said was that they interpret it to pretty much take it or leave it. The minister has resigned, so let's keep it moving. What do you make of that statement?
Yeah, my interpretation might have been a bit different in the sense that, yes, as cabinet, the head of cabinet, as the president, the matter is dealt with in the sense that the minister is no longer in that position. He was put a lot of pressure on him and he ultimately resigned. And the Special Investigative Unit's findings are still with the president. And what bothers me more now is the fact that they promised from the presidency's office that they will be communicating to us with disciplinary action for all other parties involved as well. The point I'm having here is that the SIU did refer the Zweli Mkhize case to the National Prosecuting Authority. And I interpret the president's remarks as it is lying there now. And that is absolutely a situation or a process that the president must not interfere with. So that is my take on this. If there is further action from government side on people involved in this situation, disciplinary action within that context, then they must, of course, take that action according to the proposals by the Special Investigative Unit, and they must communicate much clearer with us about what they are doing and how they are doing it with, and with whom they are having these processes. I think in that sense, that is my interpretation.
But are you satisfied that the response given by the president is indicative of acceptance of the accountability of the executive to the public and also accountability for his officials? So those who resign due to alleged misconduct, are they then absolved from accountability merely by resigning? In the sense that if there's criminal action, yes, that is in my opinion, where it must then go to the National Prosecuting Authority, and the process must continue there. As far as disciplinary action goes, in other matters that are not necessarily criminal, but certainly misconduct, there has always been an issue with this, and especially with what the president says and what he ends up doing. And yes, the president's answers in this case was once again, vague and kicking the can, which we have come to expect from him. All right. So just on another matter, the president also spoke about why he has still not honored his pledge to go to Marikana and visit the bereaved families. The question is, 8 years later, is there ever going to be an acceptable time for him to go? And will he lose the albatross around his neck over this issue?
No, I don't think he will ever lose this albatross if he doesn't address this. There are many, who think that his involvement was not the catalyst for the actual violence that happened on that day. But his involvement was always there, and it was never properly addressed. There was lots of deflection over the years, and if he doesn't address this head on at some point, it will always be there.
Thank you so much for your time, your patience and insights, Dr. Khuz, political analyst.